What's going on, everybody? I am the one, the only, the WOOKIE, joined here by my compatriots. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
Hey.
There we go. Last week, nobody said a thing. Now everyone talks at once. We got Big Z.
Yep. Here we are talking about some KeyForge things.
We got Mr. Sheep.
Yay.
And JR.
Hello, KeyForge community. One more week, everyone. Woohoo!
Well, depending on when this
What's
goes up.
in a week?
Yes, do tell, JR. What is in a week?
I think there's a big event coming, a KeyForge event, and we'll have more information about that later. Ooh.
I've never heard about this KeyForge event, but I guess we'll get to that in a little. Why don't we?
I have a wedding I have to go to.
Oh,
crap!
Shit. Is it yours? Not yours, is it?
I hope not.
Why don't we just go through the KeyForge stuff now?
Speaking of, right. I need to put out a big shout. This upcoming Monday, I don't know if it's going to be out in time, is my wedding anniversary. So there's enough happening next week, but a big shout out to my beautiful wife, Tara. While we've been together, this will be 13 years. We've been together 19 years, guys. That is older than some of our friends who are listening. So.
Yeah, if everybody's wondering, she definitely settled.
If you were wondering who's settled in the relationship.
Wow.
I don't even think it was out of my mouth before you added that in. Thanks, Dan. Arbitrator, face punch, everyone? Vote yes or no on our
We need to have channel. More late
night
night
Come to KeyForge Live and watch Ewok face punch sheep.
Yeah, I think we should sell tickets to that one, though.
Yep.
That might be worth money. We'll recoup something. But anyways, we're going to go through the top 10 first turn card plays going up here in a minute. But JR, you talked about the event coming up, depending on when this show ends up on the air. We got KeyForge Live coming up here in just a matter of a few days. Talk to me about it. Oh, anybody, tell me what's going on. I've been out of the loop.
I mean, we have. Well, the first thing that has to be like, even before I go anywhere else, is our numbers. There are 71 players signed up. Woohoo! If that does not
register, that's not counting anyone that shows up day of. That's already paid in advance.
Correct. Paid in advance. And that, thank you. All I can say is thank you, KeyForge community. That is amazing. I'm excited to see how many more people from our locals, from Madison, go ahead and show up. And we're just going to have an absolutely blast playing KeyForge. So that is awesome. And that's what we wanted to be able to hit. We want to be able to beat Collinsville. And you guys did it with pre-registration. Well done.
Yes. Last time I checked from the wiki page for Collinsville, there were 69 people that played in the vault. There were 70 people that showed up. We are now at 71 registered participants for our event. So yeah, congratulations to everyone in the community that's part of this. It took every one of you to make this what it is, and we are super excited to be there and host this for the KeyForge community as a whole. We love KeyForge, as we've said all the time, and we're doing our part to make more of it happen.
So in case maybe there's someone who just randomly came in and found this podcast, if this is your first time hearing, we are putting on a big event, a KeyForge event that is July 23rd, 24th, 25th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the 4 Points Sheraton by Milwaukee Airport. It is literally across the street from Mitchell. And so you can fly in. We also have great transportation with Amtrak that is on the opposite side. Both will get shuttles right from the hotel. And we're running essentially a lot, but the three big pieces that we want to look at are on the 23rd, we have Three Deck Survival, and it's going to be true survival that you are going ahead and playing the best of your best. And we're going to talk about what we consider those nut stacks. That's showing up today, but that's happening July 23rd. And there's some real money that's out for prizing. So this isn't just, hey, you get some great product, because there's amazing prize support that we've put together, but there's also money. We on the 24th, we then have Sealed Mass Mutation, which is extremely cool. That Mass Mutation is going to get its day in the sun. You're going to get 3 decks, and you're going to choose and play. And on a side note, as someone who just took down the victory for ABR, I'm in the championship for Sealed. So I love seeing all those Sealed players. It's phenomenal. And then on Sunday, the 25th of July, 2021, we have a 4-round team event, and it's incredible to actually see how many people have signed up for that team event. It really has turned out to be a phenomenal format. But we're going to go ahead and play Archon Reversal and Short Adaptive. And again, Sealed and the team event, there's prize money. I have a huge stack of items that came in from Luxury Playstyle, which has gone ahead and supported us. I took a photo, and guys, I just can't even express. There's so much that's happening. We have KeyForge Adventures that will be out, that we have tables for. And so it's just going to be a phenomenal period of time. So if this is your first time hearing, if you have open, if you're like, hey, I need something to do on the 23rd, 24th, 25th of 2021, I'm close enough to Milwaukee I can drive, please show up. We're going to have a fun time.
Join us, play some KeyForge, grab some buddies. And thank you to Aegis, the cooperative adventures, the people that print the nice ones you can get. They're sending us some of those adventures to share for open play. They even said they're throwing in a surprise, which I literally have no idea what that means or what that is. So whenever
it's an actual key racking. When you open the box,
whenever that shows up, Ewok, let me know, because I don't have a clue what
I
they're
forgot all that was
you.
going to his house.
I'm telling you, it is like Christmas, everyone. The amount, I have a shelf that it was my brewing shelf. I cleared it off, and I've been putting all of our KeyForge promos, all the supplies that I could. It's phenomenal to look at. I do get in trouble for pulling it out and taking photos. My wife's saying it's not a good use of time. But it is great to see. Even today, we got mats that came in for KeyForge Live for
custom
yes, custom mats. So some of the prizes that are going to be going out. The other piece I wanted to go ahead and before we get too far off is our GoFundMe is definitely still rolling on. So if you can't show up, but you want to support this awesome event, again, we appreciate it. And there's some people who are some of our supporters. So shout outs to Flaming Hobo, Julie Mackler, Lucas Alexandro, Luxury Playstyle. And then we do have 12 other awesome anonymous supporters. So we appreciate everyone who has gone ahead and donated just to make this a phenomenal event. I should also put all of the gentlemen here on this cast because I know that you've put a ton of time and money. Also shout outs to Sydney and Coggin who've also put in a ton of time and money. So thank you to everyone.
All right.
Are we about ready to get into our
introduce our new segment? It's going to be a thing we do.
This is what we're going to do, a top 10 every week?
We can rotate our segments, but this is a new segment that was thrown out, an idea, and I think it'll be fun. So top 10 first turn card plays.
Well, okay. I'm going to make can we make a switch on the fly here? I know we talked about this beforehand. Why don't we do top 5? Top 10 seems like an episode to me, and then before you know it, we're going to be like, oh, hey, that's all the time we have for today.
We love you, Wookie. Let's leave it there. Yes,
we have our top 10. Maybe in the future we'll have a top 5 segment. We'll talk.
All right. Talk to me about the top 10 first turn card plays. Should we start with 10?
Before we get into that, let's make sure people understand when we talk about first turn card plays, we're specifically talking about on the play because KeyForge is pretty unique as far as when you're going first and when you're going first, but actually second. Your first turn of the play, when you have the 7 cards, you can legit only play 1 card. This creates a very unique scenario, a very unique window in time, where there are certain cards that will never be as valuable at any point in the game after that. So when we are talking about our top 10 cards for first turn plays, we're talking about that scenario. You're the one going first. A lot of people don't want this because a lot of decks just don't have these cards. If you have these cards, it becomes potentially advantageous to some of us if we have them. And if not, you probably always want to go second. So that's what we're talking about, and that's going to be our top 10 today. So who wants to start us off?
I want to go ahead and shout out that looking at this list, some of these were put in from the group in our chat ahead of time, and I think all of us unanimously like yes. There were so many similar answers that you can see some of these cards should resonate and they should jump out at you as yes, great, phenomenal first turn play. As we get near the end, you're going to start to see that it became a little bit diluted, and there were some questions. I got ticked because I was told that it was a top 10, not list cards. There are a lot of great cards, but making this top 10 is pretty interesting. So first one without any... Should we start from the back or should we go from the top?
You definitely start at 10 and go down to 1.
All right. So. Doing it old style.
I don't know if it's old style.
Pit Lord.
Oh, yeah. That's a good turn one play.
We'll start at the top because the bottom one is a cluster. Right.
All right, fine.
I think the first one is very, very easy to see, and that is Val Jericho. Phenomenal leader. We're going to do some bad radio here and not go through the card, but I think Val Jericho is a phenomenal first turn card. Provides tempo, provides board. You get burst, you get a threat. You get to go ahead and play something else. The control, if you don't have an answer for Val, you get to use it again the next turn. So that is hands down number one. Great Starlines card.
I'm going to take a pause for a moment because JR did mention some words, some keywords. So there are certain things that can happen throughout the entire game that are specific to what he's saying. When he said tempo, we're talking about playing cards because obviously you get another card in your hand. Building a board, it's a big body, it's a 5 power, 1 armor. Burst is going to be the term associated with gaining Amber. While Val Jericho does not have Amber herself, she will allow you to play potentially other bursty cards from Go, such as Virtuous Works, etc. Oh, not Virtuous Works. I guess probably don't have that. But anyway, like other bursty cards, and threat. A threat, like it creates a board threat, like a type of card that if you don't kill, you're at an immediate disadvantage every turn you don't kill it. Val Jericho, like our list is not actually in, ranked order, like this is number 1 or whatever. But Val Jericho is the singular card out of all of this list that all of us can agree is by far the best first turn play in this game because it's the only one that has 4 of these keywords. It will give you tempo, give you board, give you threat automatically, and sometimes it will also give you burst.
Since you talked, I was able to grab it. So Captain Val Jericho is a creature, Star Alliance, with human and leader as traits, 5/1, so 5 power, 1 armor. While Captain Val Jericho is in the center of your battle line, you may play 1 card that is not of the active house during your turn.
So I think it's a little bit interesting because early in the game, didn't they actually have to write an FAQ on things like this and Wild Wormhole to actually allow you to play that second card? Because the original rules were very explicit. First turn, 1 card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I don't think so. I
Well,
remember...
we saw that back in Phase Shift, because that was already just before Val Jericho came. Eventually, we saw that FAQ come out with Wild Wormhole and Phase Shift. Had that not happened, then we would have had the same problem with Val Jericho. But luckily for her, that issue was answered prior to Val Jericho.
Yeah, see, I remember that answered way back in Coda because, we had Phase Shift.
It was, but I'm saying that this style of effect that gave you the extra card play on turn 1 wasn't clearly not tested in play testing because it had to be answered after we were already playing the game and we're like, well, does this work? And then it seemed like they kind of actually had to make the decision on if they were going to let it work or not, which clearly they chose it did, and that makes this the best first turn card there is.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of cards like that, right? Do we all remember the little owl? What's his name?
Oh.
We all loved him for a
Archimedes
month. Archimedes. He was great, and then he wasn't.
A depth chart that is now very useful prior to that, we had no idea exactly how things died or didn't die because we had no effing clue.
All right. So Archimedes, for all those people out there, 2-power Logos creature, cyborg beast with elusive. Each of Archimedes' neighbors gains destroyed. Archive this creature. And a nice little accordion style of destroyed, but we are thankful that no longer exists. Yes.
He was one of like the
but
best.
Do I hear a top 10 destroyed effect cast? Maybe.
Oh,
maybe.
That's a good one.
I like it. They're a lot.
But I was just thinking, like, Archimedes was such a hot card for like a month.
Yeah. Cheetah-medes.
And then basically just went nowhere.
He's still a real good card, but that's not what we're talking about today. No. So the next card we have on our list is Archon's Callback, which is a Logos action card that says it's Omega, draw 5 cards.
This new DG card is phenomenal first turn.
It's okay the rest of the game, because some people actually were really down on this card. I actually think it's not as bad as what some people think as far as later in the game, because you end up 2/2/2 quite often, right? Yeah. So this is a great card in those situations. But turn 1, this reads, I'm going to take my first real turn with 11 cards. Depending on the deck you're running, that could be near game winning. And what we're going to talk about with all of these cards, they're creating scenarios that give you a significant push to win the game, just from how you're starting the game.
And because we can throw out some numbers, picture this isn't just 11 out of 40 or 50 or 100. This is 11 out of 36 cards. So that is huge.
Well, and one card is in your discard. So
correct.
You will actually have seen a third of your deck by the time you take your first real turn.
Yep.
That's KeyForge gold, guys. Being able to go into that turn, because that turn is going to set up the rest of the game.
Yeah. So one of those things we have kind of talked about, but our life of draw better, this card makes draw better a reality often, because you turn 1, you play this, you're probably going to have a 6 something split or a 5 something split, and then you play 5 of that house, and then the next turn you play some, but then you get to draw into the one and you get to thin your deck of one house pretty quickly, and that just improves your card play average throughout the rest of the game, right? By playing most of one house early. And this card causes that to happen often.
Yeah, big tempo card.
Yeah. And of course it's in Logos.
It's in Logos. Turns out Logos has a lot of good first turn cards.
That's where all the good cards live. That's where all the good cards live, like Eureka. And I think, what are you going to tell us about Eureka? Another great Eureka. Logos card?
This is one of my favorite cards of all time. It is Logos, gain an Amber Pip. Alpha, play, gain 2 Amber. Archive 2 random cards. So I think this is pretty good anytime again. But turn 1, you've got 7 cards in your hand. You're going to gain 3 Amber. Archive 2 of your remaining 6 cards at random, and then end your turn by drawing 2 or 3 cards, depending if you mulligan to get here. That is half a key, plus draw, plus cards that are stored in your archive to burst, to create tempo later. I love this card. I've always loved this card. It finally has the sass/art that it deserves. Originally, the owner of DOK did not love this card, but I won that argument finally, because he finally got a deck that played it. He's like, wow, this is a lot of Amber in the archiving cards.
Yeah, and it's such a good anti-Infernus card too, right? Because 2 of its Amber are protected from Infernus-like effects.
Not on the card.
Not on the card, yes. This is such a fun card. And yeah, occasionally if you get it mid-game, it will buy you. But we're talking about first turn of the game. This is one of my favorite opening plays. I have more fun playing this than Valderico, even though Valderico is clearly the better play to start. But once you, especially, every time you start that way, the look on your opponent's face is like, dang it, because you got half a key, you've already got an archive, you're drawing cards, the draw better scenario is kind of there. You're creating that draw better scenario for you. Fun times. Eureka is a really, really good time. Now it's in 2 sets, not just the second one.
It is. Now, this one, I'm not saying I disagree with this one. I'm surprised it's only one of the two cards, but we got Subject Kirby next, but no regular Kirby.
So
talk about that. Go through this, and we'll talk about why.
So Subject Kirby, he's a 2-power mutant human, or is he just a mutant?
I think he's just a mutant.
Just a mutant. And then he has the play, fight, reap effect of you may play one non-Star Alliance creature from hand.
This turn.
Yep, this turn.
I mean, the value here is we've got him tagged as tempo, board, plus threat. Oh, in case we didn't say it earlier, Eureka was tempo and burst. This is 3 of our first turn high-quality tags. The effect of building board super early, forcing your opponents to answer big, like with their potentially big C quicker than leader versus getting to hold for that kind of thing, is a huge gain in this game. So being able to land your Kirby plus another person from an off house you're going to go to second that has a potentially good reap effect, fuse effect, is a huge value, more so than the other Kirby, which we're going to give an honorable mention. Comm Officer Kirby, while it does have tempo burst and is also a threat, doesn't really build the board as quickly, and a lot of the times those actions you want to play, you don't really want to play turn 1 anyway.
Yeah, as you see us get through this list, there are very few action cards that we have put as a turn 1 play. And like Eureka doesn't work with Officer Kirby, and neither does Callback because it doesn't exist in the same set.
And in case you guys aren't familiar, Comm Officer Kirby is a 3-power Star Alliance creature, human. Play, fight, reap. You may play a non-Star Alliance artifact, upgrade, or action card this turn.
Yes. So, yeah, he's kind of like Subject Kirby here. Is kind of like Val Jericho's little brother. You'd rather have Jericho because it has unlimited choice. You can play anything. But, a Subject Kirby will do.
It'll get you in a pinch.
It definitely doesn't hurt. And then having that second house creature makes it harder for your opponent to decide which threat to deal with potentially. It gives you a better turn 2. It just sets you up for a strong start.
All right. One of my favorite cards, in fact, he might be my favorite leader. Even though he's not, Val Jericho is still better. Lord Invidious. Run me through Mr. Invidious.
All right. 5-power disc creature with Demon Leader as traits. Elusive. While Lord Invidious is in the center of your battle line, it gains Reap. Take control of an enemy flank creature and exhaust it. While under your control, it belongs to House Dis.
I've won so many games by playing him first on the play. He's so good.
Well, he is really very good early on, but come mid to late game, I've never had much success with him.
I just saw him today in Sealed. I board wiped. I actually wormholed into a board wipe, and that was the response. And luckily, I did have something in the archives that could deal with it. But otherwise, that's a brutal response, even after a wipe. So keep that in mind, after wipes or first turn.
And our tags for Lord Invidious here it's a board card because 5-power elusive is hard to deal with. 2, it creates tons of disruption because your opponent gets into this weird position where if they play creatures, they risk you taking it. So they almost have to play, in some cases, like they're under Quixelstone, even though they're not. And it's a threat. Like Lord Invidious has to be dealt with almost immediately, or your opponent runs the risk of having to win a game based on actions, which most decks cannot.
Yeah. And he's really hard to fight down because you essentially have to land 3 of the same house against him, and 2 of them have to be 5+ power because he's got that elusive. He is real hard to deal with.
5-power elusive is a real thing, and depending on where you're landing, if they're taking them from him, like they could take your taunt, they could take your mechanism to get out of the scenario. Like it gets rough real fast, and some decks just get crushed. First turn Lord Invidious creates a new scenario that your opponent has to deal with, and some decks just don't have the answers readily available to them.
And I think the piece that's really often missed is while under your control, it belongs to House Dis. So when Lord Invidious takes control of your creature, it then becomes House Dis. So that just makes coming back to Lord Invidious that much easier to be able to do. And so that's brutal just to continue to build out your line.
Yeah, so even if they're not drawing into Dis, they'll just keep using your creatures, and the army keeps getting bigger. Like it is a game-winning scenario if you can't find the answers or your opponent does not know how to play through it.
Yeah,
I don't even know if it's a knowing how to play through it. It's just sometimes you don't
people
draw
play cards that they should not have against Lord Invidious.
I know when I see Lord Invidious in my opponent's deck, I will mulligan for an answer. Yep. Like it is a must answer. Like you might be able to survive. In truth, you might be able to survive under a Val Jericho, but there's some decks that will just lose to a first turn Invidious.
Yep.
So it is a very serious first turn play, and then other decks just totally don't care, right? But it is
not many of those.
Real good. All right,
so
our
totally don't care, but
our next one is we're going back to Logos, and we have Chronophage.
My very first game, I'll read what it does. Chronophage is a 3-power creature in Logos from Dark Tidings only. Your opponent's creatures and artifacts gain Omega, meaning after they play any of those cards, their turn ends the current step. The first game of Dark Tidings I ever played, this was the first card I played on the play, and I won 3 keys to no Amber. They never drew an answer. Chronophage was there at the beginning, it was there at the end of the game, and it was the most crushing victory I've had in a long, long time. This card, it is our tags for it is Disruption plus a threat. Obviously, if you don't kill it, you're gonna lose. It is extremely disruptive because you can I don't know what to say. Like it's obvious. Like, you just can't play cards. In your turn, it's real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Omega is one of the worst keywords in this game. And all your stuff having it for like whatever 2/3 of your deck potentially having it.
All right, next up, I think these should be a little further down the list. I don't know if we put these in order.
It is not in order. The only one that we're saying is the best is out there.
So next one, we got Commune and Treasure Map, which are basically 2 burst cards. Treasure Map, I think, has a pip on it, right? And then you get 3 Ember if you don't play any other cards this turn, which you won't be because it's turn 1.
Yep.
And Commune is just an Omega that just gives you 4 Ember. If you have less than 4, you just get 4, or is if you have 0,
no, it's
you
just
get
it
4?
sets your
Omega
Amber pool
lose
2
all
4.
of your Amber, gain 4 Omega.
Yep.
Okay.
So both of them
I mean,
give you 4 Amber on turn 1.
Basically, 2 just I get 4 Ember turn 1. I'm almost to a key. Your turn.
Yeah, but they also both really are not great cards later in the game often.
True.
The Treasure Map they both have situations where they are fine, but as a turn 1 card, they're real good.
I've had plenty of times where I've been controlled the week into Shadows, and I had a Treasure Map in my hand. I'm not afraid to admit that because it's ridiculous, but that's not likely to happen.
Yeah, and
so let's
Treasure Map did have the Amber printed on it. If you have not
it's got 1.
any other cards this turn, gain 3.
Right.
Yeah,
let's go through the witches, because I don't think this is just Dusk Witch. I think this is a lot of witches.
I don't think it's just this one. The others could be good potentially anytime. This one I think only has a lot of value on turn 1 on the play.
So Dusk Witch, in case you're not familiar, untamed, 1-power creature, human witch, Omega. So again, after you play this card, end the step, it has elusive and your creatures enter play ready. So 1-power creature that's going to allow all your other creatures to enter ready if it stays alive.
Yeah, as far as our tags, I have the tag board here. It's not really creating the board. It is creating a threat that's going to allow you to use a board. Basically, the chances that they can answer it randomly out of their starting 6 hand is just whatever the deck. Some decks will have a lot of answers. Some decks won't have many answers. But that chance that I'm going to have a ginormous second turn, the value I don't think is ever going to be higher. There's some decks in AOA that are specifically really good at constantly recurring these Dusk Witches, so you kind of have to answer them repetitively all game. So there's value in that. But as a first turn play, like the potential to come out of your next turn to like land your like your Sutterkins or all the other crazy AoE creatures that are small and normally never get to act is pretty high. I'm only an AoE.
It can often make them play not the house they really want to play because they have to go to something that can deal with Duskwitch.
For sure.
Right?
You wouldn't put Hunting Witch and maybe even a Witch of the Wild, maybe not a Witch of the Wilds, maybe a Witch of the Wilds. I don't know. In that same category.
We do have Telesia as an honorable mention.
Yeah,
as a witch.
Remaining answers, like I think Teliga was almost a spot, but on the top 10, I think it's an honorable mention because it's a threat, but the other side of it's not guaranteed disruption or guaranteed burst. It's always either or. So it's like a threat and then a half of this keyword plus a half of this keyword. Hence it didn't make here. I think the Dusk Witch, just because the value specifically that it's your first turn is higher, which is why it makes this specific list.
Yeah, because like Witch of the Eye is a terrible first turn play often.
I was talking more about Hunting Witch and Witch of the Wilds.
Hunting Witch is so easy to kill.
Well, so is Dusk Witch. I mean,
that elusive makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think the elusive makes it a little bit harder. Telegraph for what was missed was Untamed.
But we're talking turn one too. Like, not a lot of creatures are coming down turn one to kill a Hunting Witch except for a Silvertooth. You know what I mean? So there's an answer to it, but
not going to hit it because it's got elusive.
Well, I know. I was talking about Hunting Witch. So, like, the only thing that's really going to kill Hunting Witch besides an action turn one is going to be a Silvertooth.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I know that you get the reap effects from the Dusk Witch, so on and so forth, but I think Hunting Witch is just as high up there as Dusk Witch.
I know the last time I got to play a Dusk Witch turn one, it then took me 3 turns to draw and play another creature card.
That also happens.
It was terrible.
This is why I think Teliga is up there and had the honorable mention. So 3 power creature. Each time your opponent plays a creature, gain 1. And by placing that, you really are limiting your opponent to play out. And any Amber gain, again, it's a race to 18. Plus, how those keys are modified. But I'm going to take any Amber you're going to give me for free. So I think it's a great honorable mention.
All right, I'll take the next one. I'm the one that put it up here. There's a little bit of flack for this. I really do love the Terror turn one. I'm a big fan of, I think the board does matter, whether it's a body that is reaping, occasionally someone that needs to fight to deal with a threat. Turn one, landing a creature on the field that has 5 power and gives you 2 amber, which is a third of the key, is a significant boon to me, because I like having a mixture of board reapers plus amber going into future turns, and I want to come back to certain houses. So not only is it a great amber burst plus a board developer, it's from a house you want to go back to. Specifically, that would be great as a follow-up turn 2. So I really like Terra being here with the fact that it is also up in there with these people that can build a board, like Jericho, the dude you get off of Kirby, Lord Invidious. Like, they all help build board, plus have an additional effect that's value is lessened after turn 1.
See, I was almost of the kind of, and I get what you're saying now. Like, I was like, well, lump that in with, like, that's basically a commune treasure map. Like, it's just Ember Burst, but I guess it does give you the board. You do have a critter roaming around right there now, so I can see it being a little bit better than commune treasure map.
Yeah, like so we didn't rank these, but I would rather the Terror over commune and treasure map, because more than likely the 5 power body is going to get to reap, so you're already going to be at 3 as far as that goes at some point in the future. And you do have a dude if you need to answer threats of your own, because they're also going to have a first turn, and if it is something like Protophage or the ones that are coming up next, at least the Terror does give you a chance to answer on your second turn without having to have a action in hand.
Yeah.
All right. So now our next big group.
I was going to say, I'm going to give these to you, Z, since 3/4 of them are all logos. FFG, we know you're listening. Logos for the next house that doesn't come back for a while?
No.
Slow Forge.
Archon's Corner as a whole does not approve that.
Yeah, I think Z's the only one who doesn't approve of that. But why don't you go through? We kind of lumped all these guys together because they do a lot of the same thing. Right, in fact, they all do the same thing. So
3 of these 4 creatures are tempo plus board, meaning it's putting a body on the board to get that developed, and tempos means you're going to draw into more cards. The first 3 that do both of those is Zenzi, Zenzik, Mother, and Greed. Mother, you get an extra, your hand size increased by 1. Zenzi, Zenzik increases hand size by 2 if it's in the middle. That's a leader. It is a 4 power, 2 armor. Mother's a 5 power. Greed is only a 4 power, no armor. But all 3 of those are tempo plus board. They are a little bit harder to deal with because they are above that 3 damage threshold. There are a lot of cards that deal 3, 2, 1 damage. After 3, there are way less cards that actually deal 4, meaning that Zenzik, and Mother stick around. The Greed sticks around a little bit too. The last one that I only have tagged as a tempo card is Daughter. Does exactly the same thing as Mother. 2 power, no armor, elusive. So I have Daughter tagged as a tempo card. These are all collectively together in our 10th slot. They are all fantastic first turn plays. Zenzi, Zendik being the best, going down to Mother, then Greed, then Daughter. Those are the order of them, but they are basically the same kind of card. They push the tempo. We don't have them labeled as a threat, because you're not necessarily going to lose the game if you don't answer them quickly. But they are very, very strong opening plays. Zenzi for this list is fantastic. Probably would be 3rd or 4th rated if we rated these on our list. Specifically because at this point in time, you obviously have no battle line, and the value goes way, way, way up. So that's where our list ends off. We have an honorable mention section, which we already talked about, Telega and Comm Officer Kirby. We have 2 other cards on our honorable mention list, and then we have another whole group of cards in our honorable mention. Is anyone?
So the next, we have Quixelstone on here as an honorable mention, as a great disruption card.
And the reason why it's an honorable mention is there are certain decks, like all Quixelstone decks have a thing that they do. If you're playing a Quixelstone deck, you know when it is important and when it's not to have it early. Sometimes it's just not that important to have it turn 1 versus turn 2 versus turn 3. So when you need it turn 1, it's obviously going to be way high on this list. When you don't, it's not. Thoughts on the next one, Dan?
So the next one on our list is Eaton's Jar, which is the one that lets you name a card, and that card cannot be played for the rest of the game from either player.
Yep.
Again, this really depends on what your opponent's playing, because it often targets, I have found in experience, it often targets their major amber control cards, especially if they're in duplicates, and you don't need that turn 1, because you don't have any amber to protect yet.
But there are people out there that have quad Hunting Witch decks or quad Mother decks. Against those decks, you need it as soon as possible.
Yes. There's also spots where if you're playing against Quixel, you want to be able to go ahead and ban that and just make the game back in your favor. So again, it is match dependent.
Yeah, and that's why it's an honorable mention. There are definitely games where Jar is by far the thing you need a mulligan for, and then there's going to be a ton of other games where Jar is going to be just as effective if you get it turn 7 versus turn 1, because you really just want it for their big team TP amber swing at the bin, or graft when they need to graft, or brig, or whatever. And then there's this whole section of almost exclusively logos cards. Basically.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then the rest of our section is logos. Just play anything logos that gives you efficiency and be happy.
In the whole second tier of cards you want to go first is Tau Vapors, Sloppy Labworks, Igor, Lab Work, Random Access Archives, Eclectic Inquiry, Theory and Conjecture. All of those cards, to some extent Wild Wormhole, even though I hate that damn card. All of those cards are lumped together as are they in the top 10? No. They're definitely not better than the 10 we just named, but are they going to help you quite a bit? Out of all of those, I think the last one that we bumped off our top 10 list was Slappy Lab Work. That card just has a lot of value, but in essence, it is still just doing what all the other cards do. It's just a little better at it.
All right.
And when we talk about
your hand.
When we're talking about tempo and disruption, I think that leads perfectly into what is our nuts deck. So we get a big event coming up. Yeah. And what do you guys consider nuts that we should be looking at it that I want to bring?
I mean, last cast we talked about that is the great deck. We got some feedback that we would like to be some more specific. So I think Dan and me are going to give an example, and then JR's going to talk about some tools. So Dan, what is a nuts deck from AOA land?
All right, so my nuts deck, from my collection, the one that I know is going to be making the cut is PU Pan, and it's in French, so that's about all I can handle of it. But it translates to the Artist of Obscenities, and it is a AOA deck that's really spins around the dis and the shadows, and it's got multiple Hysterias and multiple Ronnie wrist clocks, which is just good stuff. But what this deck does, and I'm not going to go through the full list and describe every card that's in it, but the things that I think make this a nuts deck, and the reason it's in its spot is it has a lot of return to hand effects, so it does a really good job of hand choking anybody who's playing a creature deck. And creature decks are very real. Like, C in the form of destroying creatures is real good, but against certain decks, which actually happens to be a lot of Worlds Collide with dinos, anything that's Coda, a lot of these sets, like, they don't have the great play effects. So really, anytime they don't have Star Alliance, just continually putting them back in their hand and making them have to go back to that house and play them again is really strong. So this hand choking I found to be one of my favorite versions of disruption, which is just to continually keep their hand full of cards they don't want to replay. Grasping Vines is another great card that does this kind of thing. You just keep putting cards back in their hand so they have to replay them. And then this deck is just a heavy steel thing because it's got multiple Ronnies and multiple Brens, and it just steals like crazy. Interdimensional Graft, just all kinds of big stealing cards that, if you're making any amber, I'm going to take it and use it to forge my own keys. And then the other thing that I found that this makes this my nuts deck is it doesn't really care about your C, my opponent's C. If you want to kill my Brens, maybe I lose out on stealing some amber, but in general, my creatures on board are not that meaningful. So with somebody's bringing a big C deck, and that's kind of their goal, which is definitely some of these things you're seeing out there, it doesn't really matter to me. So that portion of your deck provides minimal value to you. And that's how I found this to be my nuts deck, is it's just very hard to deal with unless you can shut down steel. Like, it does have a weak spot. If you can shut down its steel, warded creatures can be a problem for it. Can choke it real hard. But otherwise, it's just like, it just stops you from doing anything, can make its own amber, takes all of your amber, and it's just ignoring portions of your deck because it doesn't really care about your C. And it's just a great deck in that regard because it's not counting on your opponent's game plan, answering your opponent's game plan for its win condition. It just goes about doing its own thing, destroys whatever you want to do while you're trying to do it, and wins its game.
So things that jump out to me, Dan, from this hand choking, you got the double Hysteria, you got Life Ward, which cannot be overlooked for being able to limit. You do go ahead and have Seismo Entangler, and that's a Logos artifact action. Choose a house. During your opponent's next turn, creatures of the chosen house cannot be used to reap. And then I see Lights Out too. So some of those pieces, you have hand disruption, you have choking ability in all three houses, and I think that's an important piece. I also I'll call it something that bounces out, ZYX Researcher. So 2 power, Logos creature, human scientist, play, archive the top card of your deck or the top card of your discard pile. The ability to pull from your discard pile and recycle some of that hand choke is phenomenal too. So looking at this is scary.
Yeah, it's double lab work, double director ZYX, so it can often set up some really gross bouncing death cork, Ronnie, or bouncing death cork, Bren the Fanatic, helper bot kind of situations, or it's also a multi-Charette deck, so it'll set up to where it gives you your Charette Amber back and then plays its interdimensional graft, because it does have the efficiency to set up to do crazy things. A Miasma as well, again, like it can really set up its interdimensional graft often if you are going. But really, my favorite way to play the deck is in the Dis House, and it's Hysteria, Life Ward, and Tesmal. So if I can land that Tesmal, I get my one Reap to tell you can't play that house. I put everything back in your hand. And then I come back and I do it again. And I just, with the Life Wards and the Hysteria and the Tesmal, it's kind of a weird soft lock. And it also has a Depno Spymaster, which means you can fire Tesmal out of house sometimes. And you can get this kind of weird soft lock by just hand choking them. And that's why it's my nuts deck, because it just destroys my opponent's game plan pretty much regardless of what they're trying to do, unless they're on something like a Quixel Stone action deck. That's a problem. Like, it doesn't deal with artifacts. It is far from perfect.
Which that goes back to there's no S tier deck. There's going to be something out there that someone's going to show up and they're going to wreck you, even though it's your nuts deck. That's fine. Like, that's
yes. But this was by far my favorite deck and best deck I played in KFPL Season 2. It really does good things. So this is my example of a deck that can be the nuts deck. Like, other stuff just cannot deal with it, and it is going to win games regardless of what your opponent's really trying to do often.
All right, so why don't we move into, you got Galaxy on here, and I'm going to guess that's going to be Z talking about that.
Yes, so my nuts deck is Galaxy, Tycho, Manor, Aerosmith, and a few episodes back we talked about being the meta, and that's what this deck tries to do. It's going to build up efficiency by playing more cards than its opponent, with the double Library of the Damned, the lab work, the double Mother, Nepseed, sloppy lab work. It's going to try to turn cards. And not only is it turning cards, it's going for high value. In Untamed, you've got the double Nature's Call with the double Dust Pixie. It's got Nepseed to recall whatever it wants. It has Control the Weak to be somewhat oppressive. It's got Poltergeist to answer the craziness out there if it needs to. It is basically Mega Burst plus Tempo with control elements. And we just talked about our top 10 list. A lot of nuts decks have those cards. This deck has double Mother. Has the honorable mention Teliga, the honorable mention Hunting Witch. It has the Terror. All of these things are great to see early. We didn't talk about Seed, but there's a certain card that if they don't answer can be incredibly valuable. And Seed is one of those. If they don't have a way to abuse your own Seed, it's incredibly dominating in this deck because of all the cards you're targeting. Again, this deck is going to make its opponent answer it almost every turn instead of trying to answer opponents. If it does need it, it does have answers itself. It does have a Geist. It does have Gateway. And it's got a lot of fun tricks, which a lot of the nuts decks have. But yeah, this is my nuts deck because it is the Coda Classic Amber Rush meta with lots of card value and supporting mechanisms that are actually in the deck. Just doesn't have that Q2. If it did,
so my question to you is, does it hold up? I mean, it is a coded deck, and we're now,
yes.
set what, 5 or 6? I've lost track again.
It has served me very well in every meta, and has gotten better after Worlds Collide came. Actually,
all right, JR.
So I went a little bit different route here. I got to be honest, I have some very good decks, but I didn't consider any of them straight up busted or not stacks. And so for me, I like to go ahead and look at lots of tools. So I'm looking at what can decks do well that are going to excel over other decks. So things that bump out to me, looking at some of my decks that are in the top, they have lots of these components, but I still see holes that are there. And I guess maybe I'm still looking at that S tier, even though everyone else is trying to convince me it does not exist. But things that I look for, being able to see creature control. Does it have some answers? Does it have the ability to even just have a straight up board wipe if I need that? Amber control on play, I think, is extremely important. I recently got a deck that is it's very, very, very good. It's rated extremely high, but in my opinion, its weakness is that it has amber control, but it doesn't have a large enough amount of amber control on play. And that is something that you got to be able to look at, is what cards can you answer? And that kind of got me into the next piece, which was large swing cards. So when I'm talking amber control, I'm talking cards like TMTP, IG, Effervescent Principle, IG being Interdimensional Graph. Those are cards that when you see Archon against you, you're tentative to be able to go high. You're tentative, and how it changes the impact on your opponent. And if you're in sealed with that set, oftentimes people will bounce around it just knowing that you might have, in this case, shadows or logos. I also think that there's some real big tempo pieces. I find the more that I play, I'm really looking at tempo. The original one being Arise, but Grim Reminder, has done me very well. There was a Grim Reminder in the deck that I just played for Sealed, and honestly, that was the reason that I was able to secure the win. Grim Reminder with a house to back it up. That's the important piece. There's so many decks that have Grim Reminder, and then you're just stuck with, 3-4 creatures. Or Arise, and Arise really does well when you have a nice dis house to be able to support it. In my opinion, both of those are key pieces to be able to look at. But they just turn a game where it's close. Fine, you just killed all of these creatures. I can throw down 6 disc creatures, and I just Arise, or I went ahead and pulled them all back. I like Grim Reminder in that I can choose any of the other off houses. The downside is that you're going to take another turn for it to kind of wait, whereas Arise can respond right away. You're at check. Oh, wait, here I'm pulling my Drumble back, and you're at 7, so I can pull you off that key. But those are huge, huge tempo cards that I love. And if you don't have an immediate response, you're in a world of hurt. If someone just, if they went ahead and played Arise or Grim Reminder and they're sending back 6-7 creatures, you're going to have, that was a game-changing moment. In that same regard, I've seen that Punctuation Equilibrium can really, really, really do some wonders. People who are holding on to key cards, who don't have it archived, and there's a lot of decks that just can't archive. Punk can go ahead and say, yep, I'm playing this. I play as many cards as I want. I just went ahead and disrupted your cards that you've been holding on to, and I'm going to draw more cards and continue to play and then draw again. That is huge. So those swing cards, they're just absolutely huge in my opinion. And that's what I'm looking for decks, and that's what I see as big swingers. Those are the nuts decks. Interestingly enough, I have found that again and again and again, I'm looking at tempo. I'm looking at steal. I mean, I hate to say it, but if I capture, it's still out there. But steal, I'm taking one away from you, and I'm putting it into my pool. And as it's a race, this is extremely important. We talked in the top 10 about efficiency, and Logos does it better than anyone. Efficiency has been there. That would be my piece. I think that we need to keep seeing efficiency in Logos. So FFG, if you're going to go ahead and get rid of Logos,
no,
I will tell you that whatever house you bring in, please make sure that it has efficiency, because we can't have games that are slow. That set will really, really have an impact, and it's got to be game breaking if it's not going to have efficiency. But I think efficiency is a key piece. When I'm looking at Pan, when I'm looking at Galaxy, okay, the speed that's there and the speed of I get an impact right away from it is huge. That's why Arise is so good. That's my Group Reminder. I can go ahead and save it for future turns and play it. But man, the speed that's there is really, really, really solid. Other pieces that I put in here is a game warping effect. So maybe you don't have the efficiency, or maybe you don't have the steel. So one of those pieces have then a game warping effect. That being, I threw in a couple of them, Curiosaurus, going ahead and looking at hand choke. Unfathomable right now does have a couple ways to be able to hand choke you, to be able to really restrict what you're trying to do. I put an honorable mention for Whirlpool. I don't think that's necessarily there, but what I've seen from Unfathomable, it's playing a different game. And when you can get that lock, we're talking soft lock earlier, Unfathomable can definitely set you up where Maelstrom and other cards, they can be game breaking. And then I put have a consistent combo. So a number of these a number of the pieces that people talk about, oh, I'm a combo player, I want to be able to have this, I want to have Martian Generosity, Key Abduction. Great. But how easily can you get to it? How efficiently can you store it so that it's there for when you need it? And how can you recall it? I think just having a combo of Brig, Binate Rupture, Interdimensional Graft, having Martian Generosity, Key Abduction, they're great, but if that's all you do, it's a one-trick pony, and it's not enough. So in my opinion, I don't consider those nuts. I consider those nuts when I have the ability to pull them back. That's where that Nep Seed that Z was talking about early comes in. That's where I have chances to be able to play my whole hand and then archive it and say, okay, answer, or I'm going to do it again. So that I look at a lot of tools. I have some decks that definitely stand out. One of my favorite decks that I've been playing from MM is Sea Hodak, and it's got Grim Reminder, and it's sitting with 7 different mutants in shadows. So, sorry, I might even be off on that. I think it's 9. Double Bonithings, Dino Thief, Johnny the Hung Fingers, Liam Say, Mutant Cut Purse, Red Penny, Subtle Auto, and Xeno Thief. And with the synergy, that's a piece that is often missed. You can only pull so much synergy, but people miss, okay, I can steal, but I can go ahead and put all of those cards back in if Grim Reminder comes late. You're sad when Grim Reminder is early. And so that's where it's, does that make it not stack? No, if you're relying on one piece, you're going to be in trouble.
All right, we only got about less than 90 seconds left, so I think we're going to have to go ahead and wrap it up for this week. We're going to go through some final thoughts, and we'll start with Mr. Sheep.
We're still playing online games on usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Sundays on Archon's Corner, so come play with us there if you can't make it to live, but live will be better. Come to live.
Live will be better. All right, what do you got, Z?
All right, yes. Keep on playing KeyForge. While we did this cast, we got our 72nd player registered. We're getting bigger every day. We look forward to seeing you all at live next week.
And Mr. Chair.
I'm excited. Let's keep playing KeyForge, and we love this game, so hopefully we'll see it live.
All right, that's going to do it for us next week. Make sure you guys join the Discord. We do have the, what is that section called now? I thought somebody made the section of show ideas or whatever. Always been a possibility, but now it's a Discord. It's a channel in the Discord. So
yeah, one of our listeners actually gave a recommendation, so I threw it up in our Discord. There is a piece that can talk about past episodes, and then another one in that same area that talks about things that you'd like us to discuss. So discussing past episodes and topics you'd like us to talk about.
So those are now available. If that was a thing that was keeping you from joining the Discord before, those are now there. And that's going to do it for us. We will see you guys all next week.
I wanna dance, the music's got me going.